Half of UK landlords own one rental property. Most landlords have full-time jobs or other sources of income or businesses. How much does the average landlord make over a year? Well, it's about £15,000. Out of that £15,000, they have to fund when the property is empty, it's a void. They have to pay for refurbishments and repairs. They have to pay for all the gas checks and electricity checks that happen. They have to pay for council tax when there's no tenant in there. They have to pay the council for any fees that they wish to levy. They have to pay an agent with their fees plus VAT. And don't forget, they also have to pay tax.
Like children to parents, they run, mummy, daddy, government, take care of me. Take care of me, government. Government's the answer. Government is not the answer.
But I suppose that they're not just saying that government's the answer, they're saying that the private landlords should themselves have compassion and shouldn't just gouge renters for everything that they're worth in the cost of living crisis.
I would personally argue that vast majority of landlords have great compassion. But
have you increased your rents during the cost of living crisis?
Of course, because we're passing on our costs in turns.
But is that compassionate?
Well, if we don't pass on our rents, if we don't pass on inflation, tax hikes, interest rates hikes, then the property will be repossessed and then no one will have a home. So we have no choice but to pass on some, not all, but some of the costs.
Buy-to-let property is a horrible investment. Let me explain exactly why. Firstly, property is so expensive, it means you can't get any diversification. If you've got 100 grand to invest, you're gonna be lucky if that buys you one property. It means if you buy in a bad area or it just doesn't work out as well as you would have liked, that's your whole investment portfolio betting on one horse. They're also massively illiquid. If you've got all of your money invested into property and you need to get your hand on 10 grand, you can't just sell off a bedroom or a bathroom. You got to sell the whole thing. That's expensive. It takes a lot of time. And then even if you manage to do that, what do you do with the rest of the 90 grand? You take the 10 that you need. Do you reinvest that? Now you got to pay stamp duty again. Now you got to pay agents fees again. It's just a very expensive and inefficient way to invest your money. There's also a massive fucking hassle factor. I've had a buy-to-let property before. It's a right ball ache. You have to worry about stuff breaking in the middle of the night, tenants that are being unreasonable, late on their rent. It's just a massive pain that you don't have to deal with. You're investing in something like the stock market. If Tim Cook's got some problem with the Apple factory in China, he's not going to be calling you at 10 AM on a Sunday to sort it out.
It's just been battering and battering and battering of private landlords when actually they are the support for the rental sector. The government aren't building enough houses. There isn't enough houses in the social sector to house everybody in our country. So it's left to private landlords basically to pick up the people who are missed by the system. And it's very easy to demonise landlords and make it out like they're just money grabbers and that they're making all this money off everybody else's misery. But actually, the majority of landlords and the majority of people have a very, very good mutual agreement in place. They understand their terms. The landlord makes sure that the property is up to a standard that the tenant can live in there safely. And usually these transactions are relatively easy. Yes, there is always bad players in any industry, and those are the people that should be regulated and should be fined or enforced against. But when somebody's actually providing a vital service and doing it well, they should be rewarded. I don't see this getting any better for the next 18 to 24 months. I think it's just going to continue to spiral out of control. I think rents will continue to increase. I think supply will continue to go down as landlords decide to exit the market. But government and other groups really need to be looking into this as to why this is happening, reversing some of those decisions that make it such an off-putting place for landlords and people to invest. And hopefully we can get this reversed, get more stock into the private sector, reduce the rents and give people security and a home that they can feel safe and secure in for the long term.
Is buy-to-let dead? Is buy-to-let screwed? The answer is possibly. I'll let you decide. So, what is making it bad? For example, I've got a client, she owns a property in London. She had a 3.89 5-year fixed rate with Vida Home Loans. Okay, they're a specialist buy-to-let lender. We would have used them 5 years ago because she probably wanted to maximise borrowing. And then the 5-year deal is up, and Vida Home Loan rates that she's being offered for a 2-year fixed with no fee was 8.04. So going from 3.89, 8.04, payments going from 1,400 to 3,100 on a 500 grand mortgage. That's obviously mental. The rent she's getting is 2,400. although she says she can probably increase it to 2,800. So there's a few problems there. Obviously, rents are rising because people need to catch up with the mortgages, prime example there. But also people are selling, so she's potentially thinking about selling, as are many of my clients, including myself as well, where buy-to-let mortgage is coming up for renewal and the mortgage payments are going to be higher than the rent. So if you've become a landlord in the last few years, like an accidental landlord, maybe you've switched your main residence to a buy-to-let, or you thought you'd buy a buy-to-let with a small deposit, and that's coming to the end of its deal, you'll probably find now when you come to renew, your mortgage is going to be more than your rent. So what are you going to do? Obviously, that's going to have a knock-on effect with houses going on the market. People not wanting to potentially buy houses because rates are high, so potentially drive down prices. I still think prices aren't going to drive down too much, but if anything, over the next 12 months, will be pretty stagnant. If the property is decent, it should sell. But yeah, buy-to-let's not in a great place.
Buy-to-let landlords who own properties in their own name are facing increasingly high tax bills. And that's because if you own buy-to-let properties which have a mortgage, then you cannot offset the mortgage interest against your profits for tax purposes.
Guys, this one-bed flat costs £450,000 in London. On a 5.5% interest-only mortgage as a buy-to-let, this property would make a loss of £555, and that's including management fees and a contingency in voids and maintenance. The boom has caused higher value properties to create negative cash flow because of the interest rates, which means that people are starting to shop in the north. When demand dips, so do house prices. Savills predicts a 1.7% loss in terms of capital appreciation. So it's not just cash flow that you're going to lose, it's capital appreciation as well.
People with the standard vanilla buy-to-let, they maybe were renting that property out for £1,100. Previously, low interest rates, their mortgage was £500. Nice tidy profit. It's going up with capital appreciation, so it's a good investment. 2022, 2023 comes, they get their renewal letter, shock. They're saying 3% product fee, which, you know, could be £10,000 added onto your mortgage at the end. And then their mortgage is almost doubled, so they're paying £1,000. Now they're getting £100 profit. By the time they pay service charge, you know, insurances, whatever else, repairs, they're barely breaking even.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's about being dynamic. So what does the serviced accommodation model, like maybe switching to Airbnb?
Why are landlords leaving the sector? And what is the real property crisis no one is talking about? We need to talk about the situation of why landlords are leaving the sector. Before we answer that question, I have to address by far and away the most common misconception I see people commenting. It's that landlords are surely bad for society. Right? The rationale is they buy up multiple properties with the intention of renting them out, therefore reducing supply and pushing up prices for everybody else. So therefore no one can afford anything. Okay, we'll go along with that argument. If landlords as a collective had so much power on property prices, then the reverse also must be true. Meaning that if you believe that argument, then logically you must also believe if landlords started selling up and leaving the property industry in significant numbers, property prices would start coming down and everything would become affordable and everybody would be happy, right? Well, newsflash, landlords are already leaving the market. Let me show you the data. I want you to focus on this bit from 2016 onwards. Hampton's data suggests that 250,000 fewer homes have been purchased by landlords as a whole. There's been a consistent decline since 2016, and the data is showing that 2022 is going even faster. Separately, a study by Property Mark showed that the number of buy-to-let properties being sold was 9.6, while the average number bought by buy-to-let investors was only 4.5. What has happened to property prices in the same period as landlords leaving in droves? We've seen literally the fastest growth in property prices since the financial crisis. At no point on this entire chart have property prices grown faster than at the same time as landlords leaving the market. Politically, it's very easy to hate on landlords because they're the minority, but the data shows it's not the cause of the issues we're facing in terms of high property prices. Landlords leaving in big numbers hasn't even made a dent. Managing a buy-to-let portfolio can be a crap ton of hassle. The margins are razor thin, and year on year they're being hammered with more and more hostile regulations. Just to name a few, you have the Section 24 tax regime, the EPC changes, and more recently this white paper, which potentially could make it even harder to get your property back from tenants. And landlords are leaving. It's not helped property prices at all, but instead it's created one of the worst rental crises I've ever seen. Let me show you how bad it is. This graph here shows the average number of rental properties per branch of estate agent from 2019 to 2022. It's freaking halved, from over 30 rental properties per branch in 2019 to just over 50 in 2022. That's why rents have shot up and it's almost impossible to secure a rental property. I don't know what the best solution is. I know there's a systemic undersupply of affordable new homes and the government house building targets are missed every year. So if it was me, I would increase the mandatory quota of affordable housing developers have to build per luxury apartment. I know their profit margins can absorb it easily. I would either limit or significantly increase the taxes of foreign investment into UK property. In London especially, it's just ridiculous. I would encourage companies that can make home working a permanent thing to do so. So employees have that certainty and they're not forced to live in overpriced commuter towns they wouldn't otherwise have chosen to. The way things are going, no one wins. Not home buyers, not landlords, not tenants. Something has to be done, but it needs to be directed at the real cause.